Hello and good evening everybody. Welcome back to some more OCD training. As you can tell, this is not my usual background. That's because I'm not at home today. Today I am dog sitting in a place that is on Earth. So yeah. There are no therapy dogs tonight, I should tell you now, because they're at home still. Didn't think they'd appreciate the journey. I am currently dog sitting, but he is currently sleeping. It hasn't been the greatest day, if I'm honest with you. I mean, it's been a fun day, but it's been raining on and off all day. And as soon as it gets bright, I'll say, let's go for a walk, shall we? We walk and the rain comes down. And unfortunately, he is not the most urgent of dogs. So, we've gotten fairly wet. But still, enough about me. We're ready for some more OCD training. As I said before, there are no therapy dogs with me tonight, so it's just me and the book and you, dear viewer or listener, and anyone else who may be with you when you're watching this or listening. Now, let me get more comfy. Now, without further ado, let's get on with this, shall we? Let me start again. I've said the wrong flipping word, haven't I? Chicken behavioural experiments. Troubleshooting. My anxiety is not going down. To point out, that is not me. I mean, my anxiety is what it is, but as it stands, I'm currently reading this from the book. So when I do something when I say my anxiety isn't going down, that means I'm reading from the book, by the way. Like I show, it's literally what it said. Look, see? I wonder if maybe you can see that, right? Right. If your anxiety is not subsiding during a behavioural experiment, one of the more common reasons is that you may still be doing particular things to try to manage the anxiety or prevent what you fear from happening. As we know, these sorts of things are what in themselves keep the anxiety and doubt growing. So if your experience is that anxiety is not going down, ask yourself, is there any part of you that is acting as though the problem is one of danger when you are doing your experiment? For example, are you doing any mental checking by trying to remember if things were turned off in the house? Worth thinking about. Have you planned your experiment at a time that someone will be back soon to catch a problem? OCD is a problem of doubt and fear. In a behavioural experiment, the more you can eliminate doubt that the reason nothing is happening, the reason that nothing happens because it just wasn't going to anyway, the more you truly know that you don't need to follow the rules that OCD wants you to. Hope you're thinking about this, people. On to the next bit. Behavioural experiments are difficult. My problem is fine when I get someone else to lock the doors, so I tend to do that. So it's the same I sometimes do if I can. I'll get them to, I'll say, have you locked the door? And they'll say, yes. And then I think, fine, it's not my problem. If it does turn out the doors are unlocked, then it's not my fault. It should be clear from reading this book that a broad sense of responsibility is a key thing that the OCD uses to get you to check. Often people hold ideas such as, I must do everything in my power to prevent bad things happening. Therefore it follows that if someone else checks, then they can check and they take on the responsibility. In fact, it's not your fault if something bad happens. This is a natural example. When therapy, you must test this out. Sorry, got distracted. I saw a little stain on my shirt. Or jacket, I should say. I think that is. Or it could just be dog hairs. Oh, where's I? Sorry about that. No, let's just go back, shall we? Therefore, it follows that if someone else checks, then they take on this responsibility, and that is not your fault if something bad happens. Now that is exactly what I said earlier. This is a natural example, but in therapy you may test this out more deliberately by writing and signing a contract to take responsibility for someone's house at a particular time on a particular date and ask them to monitor their anxiety before, during and after this time. The anxiety usually goes down at the point that responsibility is transferred. This is useful information as it fits very well with our understanding of the problem. However, in tackling it, you need to make sure that you are taking the responsibility at the same time as not doing everything in your power to stop what you fear happening. Not doing this is a form of avoidance. Not doing this is a form of avoidance that will keep the problem going. That is your belief that the problem is danger. In fact, you can't trust yourself. Of course, for some people such as Jennifer, they find out that they cannot allow others to check for them, as they worry that others will not check to their high standards. OCD can go either way, depending on the individual person and circumstances. In both these cases, the sense of responsibility is a key factor driving the OCD. Are you thinking about this, people? How do you feel about it? Eh? Why don't you tell me? Make a comment and let me know. Next bit. It is very hard to ignore the thoughts of something bad happening. And that is very true, it is. Very hard. The more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Start telling a dog to stop barking, they're going to keep doing it. Until you find the source. Or you say, get your backside inside now before you wake up the neighbours and trigger the autistic girl next door. Unless it's just me. If this is the case, it is important to remind yourself of what exactly these thoughts are. Remember that you are very tuned in to the threat, as the OCD has made you feel very anxious. Anyone who is anxious has more thoughts. That is just a normal part of being human. However, these are just thoughts, not premonitions or evidence that you must do something about them. In fact, if you do hold these thoughts or beliefs about the thoughts, it is very important to find out what happens if you do not do something about them. In preparation, you can test out such beliefs in other ways, like trying to start a fire just by thinking about it. Wasn't there a film about that once? Pretty certain there was. About this kid who could start a fire. I think it starred Drew Barrymore and there was a cat in it, I think. No, I'm going to have to check this afterwards. The future. What happens if you continue to treat the checking problem as one of worry? Once you have done some behavioural experiments, you should be able to see that the evidence points in one direction. That the checking OCD has been bullying you into believing that there is a lot of danger around. If you really accept that the problem you have is one of worry and fear, and live accordingly by acting against your fears, we predict that the anxiety will over time decrease, and you will be able to reduce your checking. After all, you will have shown yourself on several occasions that it is possible to do things differently. Now you can incorporate that into your life and begin to do some of the things that OCD has stopped you from doing so for so long. And yes, I did an extra "so" in that sentence when I didn't need to, just in case you're wondering. Jennifer's first goals were to be able to leave the house without checking and to reduce the amount of time she spent checking. Once she began to do this, she was able to plan more extensive trips to do things she had not been able to do for a long time. Jennifer began to gain confidence. She stopped checking what her flatmates were doing and stopped asking them for reassurance, a very welcome change. As she had so much more time and felt better, Jennifer was able to reconnect with her other friends, began to be invited out again. Sometimes at very short notice, this helped her get her life back as well, as providing opportunities to continue her fight against OCD. Jennifer was able to re-enroll in her university course and began to rebuild her life without OCD. That is, of course, until one of her flatmates left a plug on the whole building burned down. Just kidding, people, that never happened. See, look, I'll show you. Look. See? Jennifer got a happy ending. And you know what? So are we. We too are going to get a happy ending. Breaking free from contamination fears. In the previous chapter, we looked at how an OCD problem of contamination develops and what keeps it going. We looked at the example of Suze, who became concerned about contamination with disease and whether she would cause harm to herself and other people. Over time, her life became increasingly dominated by hand washing, checking, asking for reassurance and other safety-seeking behaviours. Rather than making her feel better, these all served to fuel her obsessional belief that she would get ill and die. That goes back to Theory A, people. We discussed this in previous chapters and videos, so try to remember. And maintained her anxiety. Suze considered the alternative belief about her problem. Anxiety is a problem of anxiety about dirt and germs. Her Theory A/B table is below. I'll show you. See? But we're going to go through it together. Theory A, OCD says, the problem is that I'll get contaminated with dirt, germs or disease and die. The evidence? People die from MRSA in hospitals. I remember when that was a thing actually in this country. MRSA. I must be going back about 15 odd years now. Anyway, let's carry on. If this is true though, what do I need to do? I need to wash my hands at least 50 times a day, use alcohol gel and wet wipes. I need to wash my hands until they feel right. I need to use antibacterial spray several times a day on all surfaces. I need to keep on the lookout for brown or red marks on objects. And I need to ensure that I don't spread germs or disease to others. Which is fine, a great way to prevent contamination, but it can also lead to you not sleeping. Think about it, people. Think about it. You know I'm right. Theory B. Theory B OCD is a problem of worry that I will get contaminated with dirt, germs or disease and die. See, that's the difference. See, Theory A says I will die. Theory B says I worry about dying. Where's the evidence? I've often worried about things in my past. I've read a lot of magazine articles about diseases that have made me worry more. It is actually very rare for people to catch these diseases and die. Now that is very true. See, the media has this thing. There are companies. They need to make money, and the best way to make money is to keep us watching. Because all the time more people are watching, they get to sign more advertising deals. And they get more revenue from ads. And the only way to do that is to get you worried. And so, whether it be TV, radio, or some form of print media, or even websites, which I suppose really fall under the same category as print media, but it's on a computer. See, they all have the interest in keeping you there. And they say things like, do you know that you can die from this thing? I mean, it could be a 1 in a million chance of happening. But they make it sound like it could happen to you right now. Much like the murderer, it could be in your home right now. Could be right behind you. He has a knife. He could have a knife. Or she could be a woman. Women can be murderers too. That knife could be filled with germs. And if the stabbing wounds don't kill you, the germs will. They could be in your home right now. But don't go looking for it, okay? Because it's absolute bollocks, alright? Just remember, although it's not impossible to die from germs from simple things, okay? It's very, very rare. It's like winning the lottery. It's next to impossible, but it can happen, okay? But winning the lottery, though it is not technically not impossible, you will not spend all your money on lottery tickets in the hope that you will win. I mean, some people do and they still end up with nothing. So, I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to carry on with the book before I get too carried away. If this is true, what do I need to do about it? You need to ignore your thoughts about disease. You need to treat worries as worries, not as signs of imminent danger. You need to be able to freely touch things when out in public without washing your hands. That is very true. Nowadays, due to government cutbacks in public spending, there are less public conveniences to use that. Or to wash your hands, I should say. And many pubs, restaurants and cafes now have a customers only policy when it comes to bathrooms. So when you're outside, you need to learn that you've got to be able to touch things. It's like you want to cross the road, you've got to press the button that lets you cross the road. You don't know what germs are on that. I mean, sometimes you get on a bus, sometimes if it's high up, you may touch the thing that sticks out that lets you get on. That could be contaminated. You're walking up an escalator, you may put your hand on the thing to the side. God knows, that could have a ton of germs as well. It might not, it might do. But the thing is, see, you can't just wash your hands immediately, as much as you may want to. So you've got to learn not to think about it too much and just be sensible. You know, I mean, wash it. Obviously, if you are outside and you do stuff outside, you will contaminate germs, and you will come into contact with germs, because people are, when it comes to it, some people are really, really dirty and disgusting, you know? I mean, I often criticise myself for not being hygienic, but I am, really. I'm pretty hygienic. But I often have a go at myself for not being hygienic enough. But there are people out there, okay, who will make some of the more disgusting people you know look like germaphobes. So it's easy to say don't worry about it, okay, but sometimes you just gotta touch things. And all I can say is just try not to think about it too much, okay, and just remember, okay, if you are going to eat or drink somewhere, use the restaurant first, use the bathroom first. That's what I always do. It's like if I stop in a pub for a drink or a cafe, I'll use the toilet first, and then I'll go there. If I need to go, I'll go, but if I don't, I'll just wash my hands. Then I can sit down and get a drink or meal of my choice. It works, people. It actually works. On to the next bit. Now, I hope I'm making sense and I'm not getting you all too paranoid, okay, about disease. So what will happen if I keep following these rules in the future? Actually, you don't want to see him start again. Okay, people, it turns out I missed a bit on the next page. The examples carried on. So we're just going to go back. So, Theory A. What happens if you keep following the rules of Theory A? If you keep following the rules of Theory A, you'll need to do more and more cleaning, more checking. As I said earlier, you will probably stop sleeping. So what does that say about you as a person if you do keep following Theory A? It says that you're vulnerable and you're stuck, you're a prisoner. You'll pretty much become a prisoner to your thoughts. And no one wants that. But there is Theory B, remember? So what happens if you keep following the rules of Theory B? If you keep following the rules of Theory B and acknowledge that you're not actually going to die, you're just worried about it. If you keep on with that, you'll eventually be able to get on with your life. And you'll eventually get it back. And as a person, they will say, although you may be sensitive, you may have worries and anxietal problems, but you are no more vulnerable than anyone else. Obviously, there are people in this world who have weakened immune systems, those who are immunocompromised, as they say. Obviously, there are people like them, okay, who do need to do these checks, but even some of them would probably say you're taking it too far sometimes, maybe. I don't actually know anyone like that, so I can't really say, but obviously, if you're one of those immunocompromised people, then it's probably best you worry a bit more, maybe. Or, actually, don't listen to me. If you do have worries and you are immunocompromised, speak to a medical professional. They'll set you straight. So, where to start? Sue saw that her extreme caution and avoidance and all her washing had not helped. It had made her problem worse. The solution had become the problem. However, she still felt quite strongly that the risk from disease was very high, but she had decided to try to act as if Theory B were true. Otherwise known as fake it till you feel it. She realised that she would need to touch things that she would usually avoid and not do any of her safety-seeking behaviours. No hand washing, no alcohol gel, no touching things through gloves or tissues, no trying to track the spread of contamination. She was worried that she would feel really anxious for a very long time, but bravely decided to find out if it would be as bad as she thought. Particularly important, she gave up all thoughts of undoing any of the behavioural experiments she was doing. She was particularly surprised when she noticed that as she stopped keeping track of contamination, she felt very much better. She came to realise that this was because she was no longer preoccupied with ideas of going back and cleaning those things she had contaminated. To do this, she had completely committed herself to the idea of Theory B. My problem, i.e. my problem is being worried. She held her focus on fighting her true enemy, rather than endlessly and pointlessly trying to get rid of contamination. So we have Susie's behavioural experiment. Not sure if that's readable or not, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So, before the experiment, The planned behavioural experiment was get on the bus, touch the door on entry and exit. I mentioned buses earlier. Touch the seats and poles several times. But not Aussie, don't do it enough times that people think you're weird. So what could happen? Well, you will feel 100% anxious for the whole day and will not be able to function. That is an outcome. You could get flu. The belief that this will happen is 100% at the moment. I could be hospitalised within 24 hours. 80% chance of happening. I will pass flu to Tony. No mention of Tony, but I'm assuming he's a friend. 90%. You'll be hospitalised within 24 hours. 90%. I will die. 50%. Tony will die. 60%. After the experiment, did any of my predictions come true? Anxiety range before going on the bus, 90%. On the bus, 95%. Touching pole, 95%. Touching door, 95%. 20 minutes later, 70%. 1 hour later, 40%. 2 hours later, 15%. 24 hours later, 0%. Did not get flu. Did not pass flu to Tony. Did not die. Tony did not die. Conclusions. I did feel very anxious at the time, but actually it passed very quickly as I was not doing any of my safety behaviours. Neither Tony nor I was ill in any way. Notice that no one else on the bus seemed that bothered about touching it. If other people can be so relaxed on the bus, I can too. Does this fit best with Theory A or Theory B? This fits best with Theory B. My safety seeking behaviours have not made me safer. I didn't do them and nothing bad happened. Theory B tells me to treat my horrible thoughts about disease as just thoughts. When I did this, I still felt anxious and uncomfortable, but I was able to behave as others do and had the opportunity to learn what happens when I don't avoid things. Are you on course with this, people? I hope so. Don't stop there. Actually, no, it's the next one. Those. Don't stop there. What was it there? No, I'm going to show it to you. You can come to your own conclusions on how to pronounce it. I'm not going to read it again. See? It's one of those. Don't stop there. Maybe. Let's angry properly. Once you have started kicking OCD out of your life, if you possibly can, really go for it. For Suze, that would mean going on several more buses that day if possible, and touching the door as much as possible and not washing her hands afterwards. There are several reasons why this is a good idea. Building up evidence for Theory B, it isn't just a fluke that Suze didn't die from touching the bus door. She wasn't lucky this time, she took a risk and found out how the world really works. Reclaiming your life. OCD has held you back and taken things from you. Take pride in standing up to the problem and being free to do what you want to do. You do not need to live under OCD's dictatorship where there is a ban on bus travel. Do what you like and go everywhere that you please. Protect yourself against future wobbles. If you have a bad day in the future, then you can think back and refer back to your notes. Remember that you did all these fantastic things to overcome your problem. More on this in chapter 9. Doing things the anti-obsessional way. For Suze to really build up her confidence and kick the OCD bully out of her life, she decided to take her bus behavioural experiment into anti-obsessional territory. She repeated the bus journey, but this time she took food with her and ate it after touching several parts of the bus interior. She deliberately touched a seat that she saw someone else touch, so she knew for sure that she was in contact with potential contamination from others. Suze felt very anxious on the bus, but touched several parts of the interior, making sure that she did not sneakily avoid touching any particular bit of the bus. When she saw another passenger touch the pole, she deliberately touched that bit. She thought, what am I doing? Might as well let him spit in my face. Then she reminded herself that OCD had made her a prisoner in her own home and made her miserable for such a long time. She grabbed the pole again and then ate her sandwich. She felt nervous but at the same time elated. When she got home, she had a few horrible thoughts about disease but tried to let them go without monitoring herself for signs of illness. She touched her phone and diary when she got home to spread the bus contact. She then got on with a job application and realised she hadn't thought about the bus journey for some time and that she did not feel anxious at all. Next day she had a phone call from a friend asking her if she had wanted to go for an impromptu picnic. She was delighted to accept, knowing that she could cope. Tackling behaviours and beliefs that keep a contamination problem going. Earlier, we identified some of the common behaviours that keep a contamination problem going. You'll see how standing up to the OCD and not doing all your washing, avoiding and so on allows you to find out what happens, how the world really works. You'll also find out if you do feel as anxious as you predict. And as we're coming up to 26 minutes on the recording, I'm going to call this a day. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope you've all learned something. So until next time, I'm James and you've been watching me, OCD. Bye.